You're watching this right now for a reason. Maybe you clicked because something about that title felt familiar, like it was speaking directly to you. Or maybe you've been feeling something strange lately, something you can't quite put into words. But it's there, humming beneath the surface of your everyday life. That's not coincidence. That's the first sign. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you noticed time feeling different lately? Not just busy or slow, but actually different, like some days stretch on forever, each hour feeling thick and heavy, while other days vanish in what feels like minutes. You blink, and suddenly it's Thursday. You swear you just had that conversation yesterday, but it was actually last week. Or maybe it's the opposite. Events from months ago feel like they happened in another lifetime. Like you're looking back at a completely different version of yourself. And it's not just time. There's something else, isn't there? A feeling that you're standing at the edge of something. Not something bad necessarily, but something big. Something that's already begun, but you can't see the full picture yet. It's like watching a movie where the background music shifts and you just know, something's about to change, even though the scene looks exactly the same. Maybe you've been waking up at odd hours, 3 in the morning, wide awake with your mind racing, but not with anxiety exactly, more like anticipation. Like your consciousness is trying to tell you something, but you're not fluent in its language yet. Or you fall asleep easily, but your dreams have become vivid, almost oppressively real. You wake up exhausted, like you've been working all night in another dimension. Here's what most people don't realize. These aren't random symptoms. This isn't stress or coincidence or your imagination running wild. What you're experiencing has a name, and once you understand it, everything starts to make sense. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. Only about 1% of people are actually feeling this right now. Not because they're special or chosen or spiritually superior, but because their nervous system is calibrated differently. They're picking up on a frequency that most people are completely oblivious to. Think about it this way. You know how some people can hear that high-pitched frequency from old TV sets or electronic devices, and other people hear nothing at all. Same device, same room, completely different experiences. That's what's happening with time right now. There's a shift occurring. Call it quantum, call it consciousness, call it whatever makes sense to you, but it's happening whether people notice it or not. You're noticing it. That automatically puts you in a very small percentage of the population. And if you're feeling this, you've probably also noticed something else. The people around you seem almost asleep. Not literally, but they're going through the motions, having the same conversations, complaining about the same things, living on autopilot. And when you try to explain what you're feeling, you get blank stares. They smile politely and change the subject. Or worse, they think you're stressed, burned out, need a vacation. So you stop talking about it. You keep it to yourself. But that doesn't make it go away. It just makes you feel more isolated. Here's what's actually happening, and why you need to pay attention to every word I'm about to say in this video. Your perception of time isn't breaking down, it's breaking open. You're not losing your grip on reality. You're starting to perceive reality as it actually is, not as you've been conditioned to experience it. Time isn't the fixed linear conveyor belt you learned about in school. It's fluid, responsive, and directly connected to consciousness. And right now, in this exact moment of human history, something is accelerating. You've probably felt the acceleration, haven't you? Events that used to take months now happen in weeks. Decisions that you used to agonize over suddenly become obvious. People exit your life with shocking speed, while new connections form with impossible synchronicity. It's like the universe cranked up the playback speed, but forgot to tell you. Consequences, both good and bad, arrive faster. Manifestations happen quicker. The gap between thought and reality is shrinking. And here's the most important part. This isn't happening to you. It's happening through you. You're not a victim of this shift. You're a participant. And this is where 99% of people get stuck. You need to understand how to work with it instead of fighting against it. Because if you try to hold on to the old way time used to feel, if you resist this acceleration, it's going to feel like you're drowning. But if you learn to ride this wave, if you understand what's really happening and why you're one of the few who can feel it, everything changes. So stay with me, because what I'm about to show you in the next few minutes will completely reframe everything you've been experiencing. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why you're part of this 1% and what to do about it. Now, before you think this is going to turn into some abstract physics lecture, let me stop you right there. What I'm about to explain is going to be the most practical, applicable science you've heard in a long time. Because here's the truth. Science has already proven that time is not what you think it is. They just buried it in academic journals where most people would never find it. Let's start with something you already know from experience. Remember being a kid and summer vacation felt like it lasted forever. 3 months felt like an eternity. Now entire years seem to disappear in a blur. You've noticed this, everyone has. But most people just shrug and say that's life, without asking the obvious question, why does our brain do this? What's actually changing? Your brain doesn't experience time directly. Think about that. You don't have a time-sensing organ like you have eyes for light or ears for sound. Instead, your brain constructs your experience of time based on how much information it's processing and how much attention you're paying. This is neuroscience, not theory. When you're experiencing something new, your brain is firing on all cylinders, encoding tons of detailed memories. That makes time feel expanded. When you're on autopilot, doing the same routine day after day, your brain barely bothers recording anything. Weeks vanish because there's nothing unique to remember. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is what most neuroscientists won't tell you because it sounds too close to what people call spiritual. Your brain has something called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Think of it as a filter that decides what information gets through to your conscious awareness and what gets ignored. Right now, you're sitting somewhere, and there are probably dozens of sounds you're not hearing, sensations you're not feeling, details you're not seeing. Your RAS is filtering them out because it doesn't think they're important, but your RAS isn't fixed. It's programmable. And here's the critical part. It's being reprogrammed right now, whether you realize it or not. When you start noticing patterns, synchronicities, when you feel that strange sense that time is different, you're not imagining it. Your RAS is literally opening up. You're beginning to process reality at a higher bandwidth. You're noticing things that were always there, but that your brain used to filter out as irrelevant noise. There's more. Neuroscience has documented something called time dilation in high-stress situations. You've heard the stories. People in car accidents report everything moving in slow motion, seeing details with impossible clarity. That's not poetic license. That's your brain shifting into a different processing mode, taking in massive amounts of information per second. What normally takes 1 second of clock time can feel like 5 or 10 seconds of experience time. Your consciousness literally stretches. Now here's what they don't talk about. This time dilation doesn't just happen in emergencies. It happens whenever your brain shifts into heightened awareness. Flow states, deep meditation, moments of creative breakthrough, intense presence. In all of these states, people report time feeling elastic. Non-linear, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, but always different from normal waking consciousness. So what does this mean for what you're experiencing right now? Your nervous system is in a state of heightened activation. Not stress, not anxiety, but activation. You're processing more information than you used to. Your RAS filter has widened. And because time is a construct of information processing and attention, your experience of time has fundamentally shifted. This is measurable. This is real. This is happening in your neurology right now, but it goes deeper, and this is where conventional science starts to get uncomfortable. Quantum physics has shown us that observation affects reality at the subatomic level. The famous double-slit experiment proved that particles behave differently when they're being observed versus when they're not. Consciousness doesn't just perceive reality, it participates in creating it. Most scientists try to explain this away, make it sound less profound than it is. But the implications are staggering. If consciousness affects quantum events, and if time is relative and observer-dependent like Einstein proved, then what you're experiencing isn't a malfunction. It's an upgrade. You're not perceiving time wrong, you're perceiving it more accurately. The rigid, mechanical clockwork version of time you learned about is the simplified version, the training wheels. What you're experiencing now is closer to how time actually works. And here's the part that explains why only 1% of people feel this: neuroplasticity. Your brain's ability to rewire itself. Some people's nervous systems are more plastic, more adaptive, more sensitive to these shifts. It's not better or worse, it's just different wiring. You're picking up on changes in the field of consciousness, the same way some people can sense weather changes before the storm arrives. So when you feel time stretching, when synchronicities multiply, when your intuition suddenly gets sharper, you're not losing it. You're gaining something. Your neurology is adapting to perceive reality with less filtering, more directly. And once you understand this, once you stop fighting it and start working with it, that's when things get really interesting. Because if you're part of the 1% who can feel this shift, the question isn't what's wrong with me. The question is what becomes possible now. So now you understand the science behind what's happening. But understanding it intellectually and actually living through it are two completely different things. And this is where we need to talk about what's actually happening to people who are experiencing this shift right now. Not theories, not possibilities, real patterns that keep showing up again and again in people who are part of this 1%. First, let's be clear about something. When I say 1%, I'm not talking about people who think they're enlightened or who post cryptic quotes about energy on social media. I'm talking about regular people who are quietly noticing that their entire relationship with reality has fundamentally changed. And they're not talking about it much because, frankly, it sounds crazy when you try to explain it out loud. But here's what they're experiencing, and I want you to check in with yourself as I describe this. See how many of these patterns match what's been happening in your life. The first thing people report is a collapse of the gap between intention and manifestation. You think about someone you haven't talked to in years, and they text you within hours. You need a specific piece of information and it appears, not because you searched for it, but because you randomly stumble across it. You make a decision and opportunities aligned with that decision start appearing almost immediately. Now, skeptics will say this is confirmation bias, that you're just noticing things you would have ignored before. And maybe that's part of it. But when it starts happening multiple times a day, every single day, when the specificity becomes impossible to dismiss, you realize something else is going on. It's like you've suddenly gained access to a fast-pass lane in reality. Things that used to take months of effort now happen in weeks or even days. But here's the catch, and this is important. It works both ways. Negative patterns also accelerate. If you're in a relationship that isn't working, it falls apart faster. If you're in a job that's misaligned, the friction becomes unbearable almost overnight. The universe isn't just speeding up the good stuff, it's speeding up everything. It's like reality stopped being patient with half measures and misalignments. The second pattern is what I call timeline dissonance. People describe feeling like they're living in a different reality than the people around them. You go back to your hometown, talk to old friends, and it feels like they're still having the same conversations they were having 5 years ago. Same problems, same complaints, same loops. And you're not judging them, but you can't relate anymore. It's like you've moved to a different channel and you can't figure out how to tune back to the old frequency. Some people describe it as feeling like they've died and woken up in a parallel version of their life, Everything looks the same on the surface. But something fundamental has shifted. This creates a strange kind of loneliness. Not the obvious kind where you feel sad or isolated, but a deeper kind. You're surrounded by people, but you're experiencing reality so differently that genuine connection becomes harder. You find yourself editing what you say, dumbing down your experiences, because you've learned that most people literally cannot hear what you're trying to communicate. Their RAS filters it out. They smile and nod, but nothing lands. So you become selective. You wait to see who else is experiencing this before you open up. The third pattern is heightened intuition that borders on precognition. You walk into a room and instantly know the emotional undercurrent without anyone saying a word. You sense when someone is lying, not from body language you consciously analyzed, but from something deeper. You know how situations are going to unfold before they do. And I'm not talking about vague feelings. I'm talking about specific, detailed knowing that turns out to be accurate. You dream about events before they happen. You think about scenarios that then materialize with eerie precision. Now here's what makes someone part of this 1% versus the 99% who don't notice any of this. It's not spiritual superiority. It's not because you meditated more or ate cleaner or had some shamanic awakening. It's because your nervous system stayed sensitive. Most people, as they go through life, their nervous system gets dulled. Trauma, stress, routine, social conditioning. It all creates layers of buffering between their consciousness and direct reality. They need that buffering. It protects them. It lets them function in a world that would otherwise be overwhelming. But some people never fully develop that buffering, or it started to dissolve. Maybe you were always sensitive as a kid. Maybe you went through something that cracked you open. Maybe your system just works differently. Whatever the reason, you maintained or regained a direct connection to the field of information that most people can't consciously access. You're like someone who can see ultraviolet light in a world where most people's vision stops at the visible spectrum. And here's what nobody tells you about being part of this 1%. It's not always comfortable. In fact, most of the time it's inconvenient. You can't unsee what you're seeing. You can't go back to autopilot. You can't pretend the old rules still apply when you're clearly playing a different game now. But you also can't deny that something extraordinary is happening. And once you stop resisting it, once you start to understand what's actually possible from this place, everything changes. The question is, are you ready to find out what that looks like? All right, let's get specific. Because up until now, we've been talking about what this shift is and who's experiencing it. But you're probably sitting there wondering, is this actually happening to me, or am I just overthinking things? Am I reading meaning into random events? How do I know for sure? Here's the thing. This isn't about believing in something mystical or convincing yourself of an experience you're not having. The signs are concrete. They're observable. And if you're experiencing them, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about the moment I describe them. So let's go through the 3 primary indicators that you're in this shift right now. And I want you to be brutally honest with yourself as we go through each one. Sign number 1, your old patterns have suddenly stopped working. And I mean suddenly, like someone flipped a switch. Things you've been doing for years, strategies that always worked, habits that were reliable, they just don't land anymore. You try to force them, and it's like pushing against a wall. The job search approach that worked last time gets 0 responses now. The way you used to manage stress doesn't touch it anymore. The people you used to vent to don't provide relief. Even small things like your sleep schedule, your exercise routine, your productivity methods, they feel wrong. Like you're wearing shoes that used to fit perfectly but now pinch in weird places. Most people, when this happens, they panic. They think they're doing something wrong. They double down on the old strategies, work harder, try to force things back to normal. And that's exactly the wrong move, because here's what's actually happening. You've outgrown your old operating system. Your consciousness has upgraded, but you're still trying to run old programs. It's like trying to use Windows 95 software on a current computer. The system rejects it. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because you've evolved past it. And here's how you know this is a shift and not just a rough patch. It's not one area. It's everything all at once. Your relationships, your work, your daily routines, your thought patterns, all of it feels simultaneously wrong. That's not depression or burnout. Those hit specific areas. This is systemic. This is your entire reality reorganizing itself, and your old ways of navigating it have become obsolete overnight. Sign number 2. Consequences are arriving at accelerated speed, both positive and negative. You make a good decision, and the rewards show up so fast, it's almost shocking. You invest energy in the right direction, and doors open immediately. But flip side, you ignore your intuition. You stay in something misaligned, and the consequences hit hard and fast. There's no more grace period, no more coasting, no more getting away with things that aren't in integrity. Think about it. How many times in the last few months have you thought, wow, that escalated quickly? How often have you been surprised by how fast something manifested, good or bad? You have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, and the very next day, the situation resolves. You make a choice that doesn't feel quite right, and within a week you're dealing with fallout. It's like the universe stopped giving you months to figure things out and started giving you days. This is the feedback loop tightening. Cause and effect, which used to have long delays between them, are now practically simultaneous. And this isn't punishment. This is clarity. Reality is showing you, in real time, what's aligned and what's not. It's actually a gift, even though it doesn't always feel like one. Because you can't lie to yourself anymore about what's working and what isn't. The evidence arrives too quickly. Sign number 3. Physical symptoms that don't have medical explanations. And this is the one that freaks people out the most, because it's the most tangible. You're exhausted, but your blood work is fine. You're wired, but there's no obvious stressor. Your sleep is disrupted. Either you can't sleep, or you sleep too much, or your dreams are so intense you wake up more tired than when you went to bed. Some people report tingling sensations, pressure in their head, waves of heat or cold that have nothing to do with the temperature in the room. Your body is recalibrating. Your nervous system is rewiring, and that process has physical sensations attached to it. Think about what happens when you work out a muscle you haven't used in years. It aches, it's sore. That discomfort is the sensation of growth. This is the same thing, but it's happening in your consciousness, and consciousness lives in a body. So your body feels it. You might notice you can't tolerate certain foods anymore. Can't be around certain people without feeling drained. Need more alone time than you used to. Can't handle loud environments or chaotic spaces. Your system is becoming more refined, more sensitive. What used to be background noise is now overwhelming input. You're not becoming fragile. You're becoming precise. And here's the pattern that ties all 3 signs together. You can't go backward. You can't undo this. You can try to ignore it. You can pretend it's not happening. You can numb yourself or distract yourself. But the shift is permanent. Once your system has accessed this level of perception, it doesn't downgrade. You can only move forward. So if you're experiencing all 3 of these signs, your old patterns failing, consequences accelerating, and physical recalibration, congratulations. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not imagining it. You are absolutely, definitively in the quantum shift right now. And that means you have a choice to make. You can fight it and make this harder than it needs to be, or you can learn to work with it, which brings us to the most important part of this entire video. So here we are. You've made it this far, which means you're serious about understanding what's happening to you. You've recognized the signs. You've validated your experience. And now comes the part that actually matters. What do you do with this information? Because understanding the shift is one thing. Living through it successfully is something else entirely. Let me tell you what doesn't work first, because most people waste months or even years trying the wrong approach. You cannot think your way through this. You cannot strategize it. You cannot plan for every possibility and control the outcome. That's old paradigm thinking, and we've already established that your old operating system is obsolete. Trying to mentally muscle your way through this shift is like trying to swim upstream in a flash flood. You'll exhaust yourself and get nowhere. So what does work? Presence and response. Not planning and control. You need to develop a completely different relationship with decision-making, and it starts with learning to feel your way forward instead of thinking your way forward. I know that sounds vague, so let me get practical. Every single day, probably multiple times a day, you're faced with choices. Small ones, big ones, everything in between. In the old way of operating, you'd make a pros and cons list. You'd analyze. You'd consider all the angles. And that was fine when cause and effect had a long delay between them. But now, by the time you finished analyzing, the moment has passed. The opportunity has closed. The energy has shifted. Instead, you need to learn to check in with your body before your mind. When an opportunity presents itself, when someone makes an offer, when a decision point arrives, pause. Take a breath, drop your awareness out of your head and into your chest, your gut, your body, and notice what you feel, not what you think about it, what you feel. Does your body expand or contract? Does your breathing deepen or get shallow? Do you feel pulled forward or do you feel resistance? Your body knows before your mind does. It's processing information at a level your conscious mind can't access. That's not mystical, that's neuroscience. Your nervous system is reading environmental cues, pattern matching against millions of data points, and delivering you a yes or a no faster than thought. Learn to trust that signal. When something is aligned, your body opens. When it's not, your body contracts. It's that simple. But here's the part people struggle with. You have to act on that signal immediately. Not tomorrow. Not after you think about it more. Now, because in this accelerated timeline, hesitation is the same as a no. The window of opportunity in this new reality is narrow. When you feel the yes in your body, you move. When you feel the no, you decline. No explanation needed, no justification required. Just clean, clear, immediate response. Second thing you need to understand, your energy is currency now. More than your time, more than your money, your energy is the most valuable resource you have. And in this shift, you cannot afford to waste it. Every person, every environment, every activity, it's either adding to your energy or depleting it. There's no neutral anymore, so you need to become ruthless about boundaries. And I don't mean aggressive, I mean clear. If being around someone leaves you drained, you limit exposure. If a conversation feels like it's pulling you backward, you exit gracefully. If an obligation feels heavy and misaligned, you release it. This isn't selfish. This is survival. You're operating at a frequency that requires a tremendous amount of energy to maintain. And if you keep bleeding that energy into things that aren't aligned, you'll crash. People will be upset. They'll call you distant, different, cold. Let them. You're not here to make everyone comfortable with your evolution. You're here to navigate this shift without losing yourself. The people who are meant to stay in your life will adapt. The ones who can't will fall away. And as painful as that is, it's part of the process. You cannot take everyone with you into this new way of being. Third, document everything. And I mean everything. Get a journal, open a notes app, whatever works for you. But start recording the synchronicities, the intuitive hits, the dreams, the weird coincidences. Because here's what happens. You'll have a moment of crystal clear knowing. You'll see exactly how something is going to unfold, and then life gets busy and you forget. A week later, it happens exactly like you knew it would, but you've already forgotten you knew. You miss the confirmation. You miss the pattern. When you document it, you start to see your own accuracy. You start to trust yourself more. And that trust is essential, because the more you trust your own knowing, the faster and more precisely you can move. You stop second-guessing. You stop asking everyone else for their opinion. You become sovereign in your decision-making, and that's when this shift goes from feeling chaotic to feeling like you're dancing with reality. Last thing, and this is crucial, surrender the timeline. You don't control when things happen anymore. You only control your alignment and your response. Something you thought would take 6 months happens in 2 weeks. Something you thought would happen next week takes 6 months. Stop trying to force reality to move at the pace you think it should move. It's moving at exactly the pace it needs to move. Your job is not to control the river. Your job is to stay in the current, keep your head above water, and trust that the river knows where it's going. When you fight the current, when you try to swim to a destination you've decided on, you exhaust yourself. When you let the current carry you and just focus on steering around the rocks, you arrive exactly where you need to be with energy to spare. This shift is not happening to you. It's happening for you. It's revealing what was always true but hidden. It's collapsing the illusions you were living under. It's showing you what's real and what was just conditioning. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's disorienting. Yes, it requires you to let go of almost everything you thought you knew about how life works. But on the other side of that surrender is a level of clarity, power, and alignment that most people never access. You're being given a gift. The question is, are you going to fight it, or are you going to ride it? The choice, as always, is yours.